If you listen to this podcast, thank you so much. And as you may know, we don't have a lot of guests on this show. It's only for special people that Jordan and I really want to connect with. So I have something that I'm maybe more excited about than anyone else here, because about 20 years ago, I was really taking a deep dive into how I can become a better dad. I was not the man or the dad you hear or you see in my videos today. And I read a few books. And one of the first books I read was this book that was very popular at the time. A lot of my friends were reading it. It was by author Meg Meeker. It's called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, 10 Secrets Every Father Should Know. And the book really moved me. It gave me a vision. It helped me see something that I'd never seen before. Like, this is who I want to be. This is what I'm supposed to be. This is what I can be with my wife's help, with God's help, with some good efforts and some work on myself. And it's just started me on this journey where then I just started growing as a dad. And then soon after that, I started helping people. And now here I am. I have a podcast and I have Meg Meeker on my podcast. And now I get to ask her questions. How cool was that? That's a cool story. Full circle story. Meg, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Now go easy on me. I know I was pretty personal on my podcast with you, but that's what I like to do on my podcast. But how fun, that's what I love to do. I love talking about dads and their huge influence on their kids, particularly their daughters. And so I'm thrilled to hopefully encourage the mothers and dads listening out there, because this is important for moms too. I mean, if moms want their husbands or exes to be better dads to their kids, this is really important.
Oh, I love it. Now, I know about you and your background, but can you just give us a little bit of your background story? Because
Sure.
people, even me, I was reminded when I had the honor of being a guest on your podcast last week, I was kind of like taken aback a couple times, Meg, because you just kept kind of like saying, well, I'm actually a pediatrician, because I just have this vision of you as being like, you're an author, you're a speaker, but really you're like, it seems like maybe you're a pediatrician and a mom first, and then you're like a side gig, like very world
Yeah.
famous author, right? It's like
Well,
kind of cool.
yeah, it is. It's a God thing, because you end up in spots you never thought you'd be in.
Yeah.
I grew up in New England, one of four kids. When I was 16, I decided I was going to med school. That's it. And my focus was singular. I went, became a pediatrician, married my husband in med school. I don't think I told you this. We had our first baby when I was in med school. Everybody said we were crazy, but it all worked out for us.
Mm.
So we started a medical practice together, which we still have. My husband and I. We started in 1992, just the two of us, and now we have 9 doctors in our office.
Oh, wow.
Cool thing is, we're the senior people, so I can see patients whenever I want. And
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
can say anything.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. A number of years ago, I was giving a lecture on some of the issues that teenagers face, and really concerned. And literally, an acquisition editor from a publisher was in the audience and came up to me and said, "Wow, I've never heard this before. Do you want to write a book?" And I said, "Well, I guess so, but I'm a pediatrician. I've never written a book." And so
Wow.
that and so I wrote this book, and the first night of my publicity tour, which was very intense, I was sitting across from Bill O'Reilly. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Bill, famous guy, Fox News
Famous guy. He
commentary,
was
big
horrible to
author
me.
too.
Yeah. But
He
this
was
is back in the,
horrible
oh, he
to
was
me.
horrible.
Oh
And
my
I got
God.
Yeah, I heard
so
he could be a real
angry.
jerk. I think in the 90s he was on Inside Edition. All right,
He,
please continue.
he was pretty rough on me, and I was taken aback, and I was mad,
Oh, I bet.
mad. So I
Uh-huh.
kind of duked it out a little bit. But
Yeah.
anyway, after that, then my publisher and I, great publishing house, Regnery Publishing, in Washington D.C. The president and I were just having lunch, and her husband was a stay-at-home dad with their 3 daughters, and she, was a breadwinner, and my husband had stayed home for a while. And then we flip-flop roles, and she said, "Why don't you write a book on fathers and daughters? That would be really fun."
Yeah,
And I
never
said,
been written
"That would
before, probably.
no, that would be great."
Yeah.
My dad was a huge inspiration to me. My
Yeah.
my husband's been a great dad to our daughters, And so I wrote the book.
Okay.
It was really written from a daughter's perspective on
Oh,
how daughters see their dads.
okay.
Because I think dads go about parenting like, well, this is what I should do. This is what I should do. I said, well, let's back up. Let's see what your daughter wants from
Mm,
you and how she sees you.
yeah.
So after I wrote the book, all of a
Yeah.
sudden I found myself in places that were crazy. I mean,
Okay.
I
Okay.
landed. Yeah. So I don't know if I told you this the last time.
That's okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
But anyway, my publisher said there's this guy in Nashville and he has this big radio show. And every time he talks about your book, the book sales go way up. And his name's Dave Ramsey. I'm like, oh, okay, that's good.
His name's Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
Dave
And so
Wow.
Ramsey,
I,
another
yeah. And so,
huge person on the media. He's
yeah.
a financial guru, huge media company now. Okay.
Good Christian
Okay.
too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
so I went and I was sitting in the studio and I thought, what am I doing here? Because this guy's a finance guy and I'm a pediatrician. I'm a pediatrician. I don't really do this, but I'll do it.
Wow.
And we
Yeah.
became fast friends. And then I started going on a show fairly frequently. And then I started touring with him,
Mm,
speaking and
what
going
a
all
cool
over the country.
story.
And it was so cool. Then, craziest of crazy, my assistant got a call from somebody in the NFL. They were heading up a fatherhood initiative. And she said, these guys want to meet with you and see if you can help with their parenting. I said, no, nope, nope, nope. That's one place I do not belong. I don't know anything about football. And at the
Okay.
time, I thought, no, these are not the people I want to work with.
Wow. Just invitation after invitation,
Yeah,
Meg.
and so I said no. And so about 6 months later, they called and said, we really would like to meet with you. And I said, tell you what, I'm going to be speaking at this pro-life thing in New Jersey, headquarters in New York. And if someone want to come down after I'm done, sure, I'll meet with them. So I had
Okay.
my pink suit on, my jacket and my skirt, and I walked out afterwards, and I saw five of the biggest men I've ever seen
Yo.
in
Yeah.
my life. And
Huge.
I said,
Yep.
guys, here's the thing. I am not the person that you want. You
Hmm.
need a
Hmm.
young male who you
Hmm.
can identify with, who knows about fathering to mentor you.
Hmm.
Da, 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 da. And the gentleman looked at me who was in charge. He said, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these men grew up without a dad. The one person they'll
Hmm.
listen to is their mother.
Oh
And
yeah.
you are about the same age as their mother.
Mm.
Oh,
And I thought,
interesting.
wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting. They
It's
never
like they.
called me
Yeah.
by
There's enough
they
men
wouldn't
in the
call me by
NFL.
my first name. They always
Mm.
called me Dr. Meg. So I got to
Oh.
know a number of them very, very well, and I
Yeah.
loved coaching them.
Yes.
And so, and so here I am. I do all this stuff, my podcast, my writing, and I've written a total of 7 books.
Yeah.
And people come and say, well, I want to write a book. Tell me how. And I said, I'm the wrong person to ask because
Really.
I kind of literally sort of fell into this. And
Oh, really? Yeah.
it's been wonderful,
Gosh.
wonderful work.
I have a question. As you know, we can go down so many different avenues, but let's start off with like when maybe you realized there was such a need of this important bond. Let's just start with this one book, Fathers and Daughters. I mean, you could go back, think of the family in the 40s and 50s and 60s eating dinner together and having a family. And then you get later in life, and now divorce rates are going up, and kids are having problems. We could talk about social media and tech and all of that, but it seems to be there's this loud yelling from the rooftops right now and from the mountains about the importance of dads. And that's probably because when parents separate, the kids, generally speaking, go with the moms, and you have the single mom thing, and it can be very, very hard. So from your perspective, especially as a pediatrician and working with these kids for decades and kind of seeing what they go through, when did you have this like aha, like, oh my gosh, there is this connection that I want to write this book to talk about this and how important it is? When did you
Yeah,
think that
great
took
question.
place?
Well, here's what I saw, and I've sort of followed this over the decades. Uh, Probably in the early 2000s, maybe earlier than that. I saw this anti-father sentiment growing and growing and growing in the United
Yes.
States.
Yep.
Find me a Father's Day card that isn't about drinking beer and hogging the channel changer.
Mm, well
Or,
said.
Okay.
and all of these kids who are having a hard time because they didn't have dads, and yet our culture is maligning them. They're the butt of jokes. And
Right.
this made me very upset because I thought, wait a minute.
Wow.
When I'm in my office, I see kids who have an involved dad do so well in life. They have less depression, less anxiety. They're less likely to get into trouble in high school, less likely to get pregnant, less likely to go into drugs, so on and so. It goes on and on and
Mm.
on. So I knew the power of a dad, and I'd listened to
Mm-hmm.
thousands of kids talk about how they wanted their dad and cried over the fact that if they weren't connecting with their dad and so on and so forth. And yet I go home and I see this obnoxious anti-dad stuff, and I said, somebody has to do something about this. This is not okay. And the sooner you say that, there's a little tap on the back of your shoulder. It's saying, do it, do it. And so that really was the
Yeah.
start. And then when I saw the response to my father
Yeah.
daughter book, which is in multiple languages, it's an international thing, very
Yeah.
popular in South America and the Middle East. Believe it or not, 'cause they're
Yeah.
very
Oh my
focused on
gosh.
family.
Yeah.
And so I thought,
Yeah, they are.
so it all, it all kind of came to a head. And
Yes.
I hope we're beginning to see a little bit of shift now
I
with
hope
the
Yeah.
focus on attachment to fathers when kids are very young, involvement
Yes.
of fathers, and so I think it's really, really exciting. But there is definitely a lot of pushback that I get from women who say, what are you talking about? We don't need men to have babies. We can have them on our own.
Yep.
We can do everything, successfully. We don't need them for money. We don't need them for our kids. We don't need them for ourselves.
Still, there's definitely still
yeah,
women out
yeah.
there that are still
They
sounding
do.
like
I mean,
this.
look at
Yep.
the Hollywood crowd. The
Yep.
Hollywood crowd.
So
Oh,
how do you
yeah.
respond to those people?
I say, I'm a child advocate,
Yeah.
and I speak things for kids because they can't say it.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what your kid would say to you, because I've heard your kids talk about
Of course. Well said.
and what they say is they are desperate to have their dad involved. Remember Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's kids? Do you remember their kids desperately wanted them to get married, not just live together?
Okay.
I
Why?
don't remember that. Wow.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
you probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't
Wow.
know. I read it along the way. But here's why. Because to kids, it isn't just having a good relationship with mom and a good relationship with dad. It's the marriage that gives them security.
Yeah,
Because
they're
that's
committed.
The ground
I'm safe
that's
here.
the
You're
ground. I'm
attached.
safe.
Yes.
You are taking care of each other. I know this is okay, because when a divorce happens, kids worry about both
Yeah.
mom and dad.
Yeah.
Profoundly disconnected.
Yes.
And in addition to that, I've seen tremendous pain kids go through if they don't have a dad, or dad is divorced from mom. And historically, dads get the shaft during a divorce, and they
Right.
get, they get every other weekend and Wednesdays. Okay.
Right.
Which isn't enough for kids. And so I'm really very pro dad, and I speak to dads because their kids need me to, and their kids
Yeah.
want me to.
Yeah, well said. Let me ask you a question about, let me start off by, one of the best TV dads of all time is Phil Dunphy from the TV show My Family. Now, you mentioned something about in the 2000s. So I'm just thinking about this on the top of my head, Meg. So I grew up on this generation of TV where a show like this form of dad that was all pretty like in this typical sitcom dad. So everybody think of Homer Simpson, Ray Romano, maybe Tim the Toolman Taylor. You show this man who's kind of a doofus, and he's kind of selfish, and he's bumbling around, but he's funny. And then he's married to this very mature, loving mom who's taking care of the kids. And everybody, there's like a genre now where it still exists. Can you think of another dad that kind of fits into that genre that comes to mind? Where it's like kind of not a good dad?
Oh, I can't think of any good dads in movies or
That's okay. Well,
sitcoms.
but
It's so sad.
It is
That's
very,
so
very
sad.
sad.
It's so
But,
this
and
is
and even
why
a little,
this is why Phil Dunphy. But this is why Phil
and
Dunphy
even a little,
is
Yeah.
still kind of in that genre. But the
He
thing
is in
about
that
Phil,
genre,
go ahead.
but he's still projected as goofy and a little stupid. And he's
Yeah,
funny.
he
Well, it
sure
is
is.
Hollywood, so they still
It
have
is
to throw
Hollywood.
He's
it
It
in
is
there.
hilarious.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
He
He's
is
hilarious.
hilarious.
Right. And
I
so
agree.
it's like
I totally agree.
the idea of why the book
But
in
he's
your
yeah.
right. This is why we
Go ahead,
need
Sean.
like more than Hollywood. Why we need more than Phil Dunphy. Because many
Mhm.
of us, and I'm one of those men, I was one of those boys, you guys, grew up in, I did not have a great present dad in my home. My dad did not live in my home. And Meg will tell you the research on this. And so here I am just growing up on MTV, growing up on just watching TV and just being like, who do I want to be? And I look at TV and I'm like, oh, is that who I'm supposed to be? Am I supposed to be Ray Romano? Am I supposed to be Homer Simpson? And then, you come and you become a dad and you're like, okay. And then you have your wife telling you got to be gentle with the kids. You got to be this, don't do that. We don't say that. And I'm like, what? Well, I don't know what to do. And that was literally, this is like an autobiography right now. And so I realized like, I got to stop looking at TV characters and I need to start reading. I need to get a vision and teaching people. And in your or learning from actual people who know how to parent. In your book, here's the line. It says, Dad, it's not optional. Your daughter needs you, hero. That's one line from the book, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. So give me your thoughts on what I just said about 90s dads. And when you have a chance, tell us, what does that mean to be a hero? Like, how can I, because we got dads listening to this right now. What does that mean to be your kid's hero?
I actually wrote a book called Hero, Being the Strong Father Your Kids Need. Here's what it means. And a lot of dads were put off by the title because they said, I'm not a hero. I'm not wealthy. I'm not
right. Because that's
great
what
at
I'm
this.
thinking. Right. Yeah.
I said, hold on a minute. I'm not talking about how you see yourself. I'm talking about how your kids see you. From the moment your kids are born and you hold them and they smell you and they hear your voice, they know you're not mom. And they know you're different and they know your voice is deeper and they feel secure. You are the guy. And all during your kids' growing up years, those first 5 years, for instance, your kids see you, whether you're this way or whether you're not, doesn't matter. Your kids see you as the smartest, strongest, best man in the world who can beat up anybody else's dad. Okay. And this is how your kids, they don't see their mothers that way. They see their mothers in a wonderful way, but it's very different. Okay.
Yeah.
And so really, this is a title that's given to you. It's not earned. It's not earned. And because dads are the most important men in a child's life, period. You're the one who shows them what male love and male trust and male kindness and male comfort is all about. So being a hero in your child's life means that you just have to work hard not to fall off the pedestal. You don't have to earn anything. Your child wants to know that a hero is a person that they can trust. That's not going to lie to them. That's going to have integrity. That's going to show up.
Yeah, just show up.
Just show up.
Just show up. Yeah.
Just show. If he says, "I'm going to be home and take you to a soccer game," you're going to be home and take him to the soccer game.
Yeah.
It's as easy as that. Because hero in a child's mind is enormous. And I think dads have no clue of the enormity of their presence in their child's life. Nobody else can be dad. A coach can't be dad. A pastor can't be dad. An uncle, if dad's not around, works really hard. Somebody like that can be a surrogate dad and a great influence.
Right.
But every man and every woman wants the approval, the nod and the smile and the wink from their father. And if you don't have it, you live with that hole.
Right.
And everybody knows that.
Yeah, they do.
You can be a 60, 70-year-old man, and if you never got that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we can say, oh, mothers and fathers are the same. All you need is a parent. That's not true
It's
from
really
a
not.
child's perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that we're in the midst of seeing a shift, right? And you mentioned something earlier. I would say a role model for me is you mentioned Dave Ramsey. I think he's a great dad. Like, just watching how he is. I met his daughter Rachel. She was so cool. I'm like, man, their relationship is so awesome. You get to hear how he talks and how he parents and how he'll tell you the brutal truth, but he does it with love. And then you have someone like Kobe Bryant, who really brought out the importance of being a girl dad. And he started that hashtag girl dad. He had 3 daughters and he was just there for her. Mario Lopez just got a star on the Walk of Fame, and they asked him what it means in his career right now. And he says, at this stage of life, I love being a dad. Like, he just really highlighted the fact that he's just like, all this is great, but like, being a dad is my purpose. So I feel like there's a shift, which is great. And it's like the importance of the father figure there. If you were to look down the pipeline, we still have a lot of work to go, but do you see it coming to a point where it's like everybody knows the importance of the father figure and it just becomes the norm?
I do. And here's why, because first and foremost, we need to break through this image that our culture has. If you're a good dad and you're a strong dad, that means you're a military sergeant. And that means you're cruel. And
I
that
know.
means
Yeah.
you pound on women and they
Yeah.
become subservient, and so do your kids. We need to get that gone. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're still doing that.
We
where
are.
the word father is not a swear word.
Yeah. Well said.
But it also doesn't mean that you're a wimpy pushover where you're controlled by your kids and your wife. So I think men are just trying to figure it out.
I want to go deeper on that in a second. Please continue.
Yeah, and I think that my hope is where we will end up, which I think we will, is that men will get to the point where good dads will get to the point where they're comfortable in their skin as a man and as a father. They're comfortable listening to their instincts. They're comfortable disagreeing with mom on how to parent. Okay. And they're not feeling intimidated by everything around them that says, this toxic masculinity. Masculinity's wonderful.
Yes.
But it's been hijacked
Yeah.
by a lot of people
Yeah.
who want to make it like, we don't need you. And the reason we don't need you is because you're mean, cruel, horrible people.
Yes.
If somebody said that to me as a woman and a mother, women wouldn't take it.
Right.
We wouldn't take it. I mean, we just wouldn't. Men take it because I think they don't want to push back, because I think they realize they need to control their tempers, because once you let it rip, it's not a pretty thing. But I do believe that we will get to that point. I am seeing, a number of fathers who are at-home dads where mom is the breadwinner, and I will tell you, they're amazing.
Yes,
I have a
I
girlfriend.
know some too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a girlfriend who, I have 2 girlfriends in medicine whose husbands stay home and they have the careers. They are much better, quote, mothers than my friends would be. And my friends will admit it.
Yeah.
They really will.
That's so awesome.
Because here's the thing that dads need to realize, everybody needs to realize about kids, is that from a child's perspective, mom is the person that has to love you. Okay, that's a given. Okay. Dads are often the ones that take off, but mom has to love you. So from a kid's perspective, if mom says something or says something nice, kids are like, okay, mom. But if dad is around and dad says something nice about you and dad applauds you, it's real. It means something. So even in a child's eyes, children perceive mom very differently than dad. It's not better or worse. So when a dad is an at-home dad, he instills so much self-confidence in their kids. Mothers can too.
Yeah.
An at-home father, let me tell you, if you have a teenage boy and you're a single mom, it's tough. Not only is it tough physically and emotionally, it's very tough because a mad teenage boy who doesn't have a father can be abusive to mom. frankly
Yeah.
abusive,
Uh, um,
physically,
okay.
emotionally, but they won't do that to their dad.
Okay. Okay. I got a question for you on that point. Next week, Jordan and I are gonna do a special episode where he's gonna actually interview me on what are the 5 biggest pain points that I'm seeing with the clients that I work with, like inside my membership or one-on-ones. And one of the points I'm going to talk about is that what you just said is about there is a lot of single women, single moms out there that are actually being abused by their son right now. It's a thing. It is a thing.
It's a thing.
And the second point is something I want to get your advice on. It's kind of a long-winded question, but so hanging with me if you could, Meg. So, all right. So right now, here's what I don't have research on this, but this is what I've been observing over the last 10 years. Now, I've been in this space for almost 25 years, but I think parenting has changed, especially from a dad point of view, a lot over the last decade. So here is what is going on. And if this sounds familiar to you, I just want you to know that what you are not alone. Okay, so we have a lot of great parenting information out there now on social media, TikTok, YouTube, books. You have people like me that do skits on camera, and you have a lot of amazing matriarchs, women that are like, oh my gosh, I want to be better than my mom. I want to be the best mom I can be. And now I have even more resources with books and social media. So I need to get this book to my husband. I need to send this video to my hubby.
Right.
And one of my favorite things from last week, Jordan, that Meg said was, she said something like this. She can correct me. I write books for women to give them to their husband. Right? Isn't that like,
That's
that is
good.
Yes.
That's
so
really good.
brilliant. That's
It's a
probably
little
why
tricky.
she's so.
It's a little tricky because you have
Yeah.
to use mom language and
For
dad
sure.
language.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, that's why she's number one, right? That's why she's so great. Right? So smart. She's thinking that through. But here's what we have going on now, Meg. Okay, so we have a lot of dads out here that were me 19 years ago, and they are very confused. How do I be strong? But when my wife's telling me not to be strong, how do I be a man when I see these videos that I see that show a lot of femininity? How do I be a good, strong dad when I'm hearing about gentle parenting? And now what we have is a lot of confused men and dads, and many have gone way too far, and they are like not strong anymore. They're weak.
Yeah, they're not assertive. They're getting walked all over by their kids, right?
by
Is that
their
what you're saying?
kids,
Yeah.
and they are being treated disrespectfully, and they are
They don't punish.
normalizing it. They
Right.
don't stand up for themselves. They don't teach. They don't coach.
That's because I feel like what I've seen is the moms or the wives are like, you know, you're not allowed to do that. Don't do that. You know, like, because from a guy's perspective, you just want to like grab your kids by the shoulder and be
Right.
like, you cannot do this. But it's like, no, don't
No.
touch the kid. Let them walk all over you.
And I don't swear. I don't really swear really ever, but occasionally. But I almost never swear on a podcast. But I want to say something edgy, because like if you're a man listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. It's like the wives are snipping their husband's balls, is what we would say for like sports language. George's laughing because he
Right.
knows what I'm talking about. Because that's how we might talk, you know, not on a podcast. It's like you have these confused men, so they don't want to traumatize their kids. They don't want to yell at them. So then, because they're being told it's going to traumatize them or hurt them, and their wife's telling them to be gentle, so they just end up being like nothings. So this is like a huge thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Give us
What's
some
the
advice.
balance? What's
Give
the
us some
balance?
advice of how do we get out of that, and give advice for the mom, because she's like the one leading the charge here.
Yeah.
Or maybe the dad is just so hurt and scared, and maybe he's leading the charge of like, I'd rather be a gentle dad that gets walked over than being a good dad. It's too scary for me.
Well, I think first of all, fathers believe that mothers get kids. They know what they need and they know how to meet those needs. So they have a plan, and dads need to fall in line because mom knows best. That's not true. Dads are wired with everything they need to be a great dad, but they don't listen to it. They shut it down. And if you're a mother listening, one of the worst things that you can do to your child is to diminish the importance of the father and make him look like a win.
Preach it,
And
sister.
Hold on.
And
I want to add
It's
to that
so
though.
good.
Real quick.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's not just from a family perspective though. I mean, even the courts look at life this way. They give
do. They do.
privilege to the moms versus the dads.
Yep.
A lot of courts are changing here in
They
California.
are
They changing a
I've
lot.
Yeah, and I've testified in a number of courts, and this is all changing. Here's why being a soft, permissive father whose kids walk over him is so terrible for children. When children see you as strong because you're the man, you are in their eyes big and strong, and you have an authority, and they want to listen to the words that you say because they mean a lot to them. When they see you abdicate your strength and allow them to take over, they feel they're in charge, and it's terrifying to them. It's terrifying.
Yeah,
to them.
I've seen that in my own three kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
When dads take away the boundaries and say, "No, you can't do that, kid. No, you can't do that." Kids run ripshod over their fathers, and it feels so wrong to them on the inside.
Yeah.
They can't articulate it, but they lose trust in their father. They lose a sense that dad knows what he's talking about, that he has authority, that dad is capable. Because when you abdicate that strength of being a dad in your kids' eyes, then they can no longer trust you. And women need to understand that your kids need a dad who is masculine.
Yes.
Who can say, "No, you can't do this." And if you don't believe me, look at what happened. Was it in Louisiana a year or two ago, where they had a high school with kids, boys that were out of control, out of control. They were terrorizing their teachers. They were taking over the school. They were impossible. They were violent.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, it was terrible. You should Google it. It's pretty
Okay.
amazing. And the dads in the community, most of them were African American, said, "We're done with that. We're not going to let our kids run the school." So 40 of them got together and they said, "This is what we're going to do. We fathers are going to sign up for different days, and all we're going to do is walk in the high school, walk around the hall."
Yes, heroes.
And they did it within 2 weeks.
Yes.
Guess what happened to the out of control boys?
Tell us.
They came under control.
Yeah.
I always say, this is just sort of in my mind, little testosterone in a teenage boy needs to bang into capital big testosterone to understand his place. And when you have a boy, a teenage boy, who's out of control, who's violent, who knows he's out of control, is miserable because he's out of control, he's scared to death, and you don't have anyone who can say, be that brick wall and go, "No, this is
brick wall.
as far as you go,"
Yeah.
the kid is lost. In a teenage boy's eyes, mom cannot be that wall. That's why we need fathers who are strong. If a teenage boy runs into dad, mows him over, then he's insecure. I had a mother, a teenage boy who was giving his mother a terrible time, swearing at her, being mean, everything. And the father, her husband, heard the son from the other room swearing at his mom. And dad was smaller, shorter than the kid. He went in the room, grabbed the boy by the shoulders, pinned him up against the wall, and said, "Don't you ever talk to my wife like that again."
Yep.
Guess what happened to his behavior towards his mother? Done.
Nice.
Done.
It's done, yeah.
The authority of a father is critical
Yes.
in a child's eyes, whether the child is 2 or 5 or 15. And when mothers take that authority away under the guise of being loving and kind and empathetic to their kids, they take away the child's security, and it's a cruel thing to do to a child. Dads need to learn to listen to their instincts.
Meg, the last
act
question
on it.
I have for you is, when you look at society and you deal with a lot of kids, and it's very difficult, but you've got working parents, or if you're fortunate enough, maybe you have a stay-at-home parent. It just seems like kids who have a stay-at-home parent will have that sense of normalcy or security that you're talking about, and maybe are better, well-rounded overall. I don't know if that's the case. My question to you is that true? And if so, how can we get back to a society like that when we try to promote, everybody working longer hours and trying to climb the corporate ladder and all the stuff that really doesn't matter in the long run when it comes to family dynamics?
Now we're going to push a lot of buttons with your listeners, but I'm going to do it because that's what I do. I don't care
Do
if
it.
people hate me. I'm old enough. I don't care. It's very clear that children in the first 3 years of life do better emotionally and psychologically when they spend the majority of their time with an at-home parent.
Yep.
And here's the reason: attachment.
Yeah.
Kids who move from one person to another person to another person have a difficult time forming strong attachments.
Yeah.
And in order to be secure later in life and to feel self-confident later in life, kids need to know that they belong to someone and that someone loves them, has their back, they can trust them, they're always there.
Yeah.
Now, some of our listeners, they can't do that. If they
Yeah.
have, they could have, somebody come in the home and take care of the children. Beautiful book by Erica Komisar called Prioritizing Motherhood, actually, in the first 3 years of life. She talks about mothers, but I think that, fathers in the first 3 years of life, and talks about how critically important it is for kids to have a strong parental presence the majority of time in the home.
Yeah.
And I've heard from kids who've grown up with two professional parents and the parents weren't around. And I'll tell you what they say. They feel my parents just didn't care enough to be around and be with us.
Yeah.
They preferred their work, which is true. Because a lot of parents, maybe they're struggling financially. I get it. They need two incomes and so on and so forth. But there are a lot of parents that don't need two incomes, that can live with one car and can live with a smaller home. And they need to realize if you sacrifice during the early years of your child's life, you can build your profession. You can have a great job. There are years and years and years of it ahead. But as a child advocate, I need to speak for kids. And that's what
Yeah.
I see happen in kids.
Wonderful. Hey, wonderful. Yeah, wonderful truth and inspiration on that. Meg
You're gonna get
Meeker.
a lot of hate. You're gonna get a lot of hate mail.
No, it's
Okay.
true. It's true. It's you're, as
talk
a
about
child's
it
advocate, it's
frequently.
honest. Let's be honest. That would any child would want that, having a
Yeah.
stay-at-home parent.
I would
And
want
it's
that too.
everybody would want that. It's tough with today's economy and things like that.
And
But
kids
Meg,
are
you
lonely.
are
Kids are
yeah,
very,
they
very
really they
lonely.
need attachment
They're
theory. They
lonely.
need to know someone's here for me, not and I come home from school with someone there. That is such a gift. And that's why, in a perfect world, you even have more extended family member, right? And that's part of our problem in our society. We're all separated. Our houses are bigger. Our TVs are bigger. But Meg Meeker, you are been such a source of inspiration and education here today. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming and sharing your passion with us, because you are a firecracker.
I am.
You-
And you know it's your calling when year after year after year you just get more fired up.
Yeah.
And it's cool. But I did want to tell your audience, I
Yeah.
do coaching. I'm not writing books. I'm not
Yep.
doing a lot of speaking. I'm coaching
Yes.
parents. And I do one-on-one, I do group, and I love it. And
Oh, yes.
what I'm there to do is exactly what we're doing on the podcast.
Yep.
Encourage dads to be dads.
Uh-huh.
Teach mothers how to let their husbands and exes be good dads and
Yes.
encourage them. And then also just, what to do with cell phones in your kids and what to do with screens and what to do with video games and what to do when your kids won't pay attention or they're rude to you. I handle the whole gamut.
Love it.
And so, Meeker Parenting and my website, anybody does need group or individual coaching, go to my website. I'd love to help them.
Love
Thank
it.
you,
I'm going to
Meg.
leave today's episode from a beautiful quote from the book Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. It goes like this, written by Meg Meeker. Dr. Meg, but love isn't just about feeling good. It's about doing what you don't want to do over and over again if it needs to be done for the sake of someone else. Love is really about self-sacrifice. Thanks for joining us today, Dr. Meg.
Thank you.